Yeah, no, I complain I have really wavy and hair, and then my wife reminds me of all our family members and friends who have less hair than I do at the same age. I'm like, don't complain about that. Okay. Meetings now streaming live on YouTube, and I'm talking about my lack of haircuts. It's the SEC Growth Data Science meeting of June 7th, 2023. And Thomas, you have the first item.
And before I get there, I will say the advantage of my personal hairstyle is that I can have no bad hair days. And so along those lines, but moving on, something that we've talked about before, something that has become official because that MR is now merged in. The official GitLab release date is changing. It is no longer the 22nd as of 16.6. And so more information is available at the other end of that link. I'm sure that this will cause a little bit of chaos in our planning cycles in the coming releases, but change cometh. So, hearing nothing else, I also see I've got the next one. So moving on, for those of us that work in Go, version 1.19.10 dropped. And we typically have a habit of pinning to minor versions when we're doing this. So it's just going to basically be a rebuild. There's a bunch of security fixes that are available as a part of this. So be thinking in terms of compliance and everything's along the lines of FedRAMP and so forth. So anyway, if you're working in Go, this is a encouragement to kick off a new pipeline and a new release built on the new version, built on the new release of Golang itself.
Cool. My favorite subject next is what's top of mind for everyone. For me, it's AI. And I didn't say AI 3 times. And things are somewhat stabilizing in all our plans and execution, et cetera. So AI, and I know I am way behind on updating the OKRs based on the changed plans. And I need to update the OKRs, at least the ones that I own or we own, because they're lagging what our actual plans are. And I feel bad that it's second month of the quarter and I haven't done it, but I've been slammed with other things. And nobody's complaining. But I still need to update.
Could you give an example? What do you mean?
Like,
what's changing? What should we be worried
specifically
about?
The AI stuff. I think we said, X number of experimental features in Y time, and we're more focused than that. Like we're working on specific features and not a large number of them. So that's like I need to update that one in particular. That's the one that in particular I'm thinking about. Just so I didn't scare everybody, like a bunch of things are going to change. So thanks, Phil. It's that one in particular I need to update. And I also haven't reviewed like any of the others. I think I got assigned some things that I haven't looked at yet. Or I've barely looked at that I need to. Okay. Thomas, how about you?
Right. I will link and talk at the same time. The iterative versus incremental development practices. And there is a difference between the two, and wondering if we're beginning to be guilty of swapping out the I in credit from iteration to incremental. And so that's coming to mind because I'm increasingly hearing stories of when we swarm on particular areas of the code base that we've got people tripping over each other. And to me, I'm wondering if that's a sign of more of an incremental approach rather than an iterative approach.
Yeah, I think there's a book about that. Adding X amount of developers late stage in a project doesn't complete the task any earlier. Top of mind for me is a borrower request, which we currently have going on. I'll be limited with my details here, but abuse maintenance, which we have. Donks, so GTLB is looking good this week. And yeah, new product proposal about rate limiting and rate limit exemptions.
Cool. Nate?
Yeah, sorry, I jumped off there for a minute. Top of mind there for me is just, the engineering changes as well recently, and excuse me, the roadmap impact. So just trying to work through what that means for compliance. And I know we've got a short-term borrow going on as well, and just working through all that at the moment. So that's top of mind for me. And also that the quarterly earnings was, yeah, very interesting.
Indeed.
Mm.
Yeah, I'm
Cool.
not privy to what those are going to be, of course, beforehand. Thankfully, I'm not privy to such things. I have no idea. But I was definitely refreshing my browser to see when they'd be released and how the market would react. But I try to not look things on a daily, nor monthly, nor quarterly basis, but it's also hard not to at least look at it in detail quarterly.
Some of our teams have been working on some projects that have been going on for a long time. Jay's team has one, which is sort of being rolled out and managed right now. Our growth team has another. I won't go into too many details around that. But that's work that goes back a year and a half now, which is being rolled out this week and next week. So we're watching that. We're looking at last minute changes and responding to feedback.
Cool.
Sorry, I've been scrolling. I think I'm next. I'll avoid talking about AI. I think what's also top of mind is we're having 2 new backend engineers join the team, formally 16.2, but we've started the coordination. So I'm aligning onboarding buddies. I'm going to have 2 front-end engineers, kind of more project focused, so they can get going on some tasks, and then backend engineers. Those are going to be coming from Tiago's team, but they'll be a great resource for backend type questions. So they'll be in great hands.
Cool. So I had a couple of things. I was looking at my to-do list, lower priority to-do and reading this. So I thought this is interesting. The OASP top 10 for large language models project is that OASP is open source, and they're really good at open collaboration with anybody interested. I've done some stuff with OASP, with the OASP people volunteering to work on OASP things. This was pretty kind of topical and neat as an OASP top 10 for large language models. Not sure how much you can say there, as well, there's lots you can say there, but like specific recommendations are hard. So if I had time, I would put a little time into it. I'd go into the GitHub project and put some comments in and make some recommendations, but I don't have the time. But at least now, but maybe I will in the future. And Neil, you had a thought on this.
Yeah, so I think Phil has been doing awesome sharing resources. He brought this to my attention in a couple of weeks. I raised it to my team. We have, in getting ready for beta, we have a security performance stability evaluations specific to security. This fit really well. I linked off to a thread where we started that conversation. A lot of interesting thoughts. What's really neat about this list is when we think about the OWASP code vulnerabilities we're all used to seeing, is they're very specific to exploits, things like that, where these are more, some of these are behavioral. It's like user training, like expect your users to do it this way or not this way. Like it's not like a code thing. It's more of a human thing that we need to be aware of. So yeah, very interesting topic. I was very excited a couple of weeks ago to start a brown bag. I don't know where the time went, and now I'm going on PTO pretty soon, but I think that'd be really neat to schedule a brown bag, invite anyone who wants to join, and we can kind of just go through this list and share stories and examples, things like that. There's a lot of great thoughts, I'm sure. That might be a good way to kick it off and expose this to everybody. It's still something I can schedule by all means. I'm just not sure if I can run it.
Wayne, do you think someone from vulnerability research would be good to involve in that?
Yeah, nudge them. Nobody volunteered. It's definitely a volunteer kind of thing. They're really, they're down to 3 people from 4 as one team member's on paternity leave starting 2 days ago. It's neat. So he's going to be out for a couple months. And the team is actually, 3 of the 4 people on the team actually volunteered for a lot of the AI work. Not specific to security, but more, it turns out they had some of the skills around various ways to do IDE integration for like JetBrains and for NeoVim and Sublime and Emacs. And they did, for example, a proof of concept of IDE integration for AI code suggestions using something called Language Server Protocol, LSP, which is you write it in LSP once and then multiple things can use it to massively oversimplify and say it incorrectly. But we're actually using that architecture from the vulnerability research team in a lot of the IDEs, which is kind of neat. So they've been doing research more than vulnerability research more as of late, but now getting back to the vulnerability side. And they weren't interested in this. But it's a good point, Phil.
I can go, by all means, go ahead and get something scheduled for next week.
Me?
Start off
Again,
that
it's
way.
just it's a heads up,
Yeah.
not a request.
No, I think it'll be more or less agenda list. It'll just be like, we're going to review this. We're going to go through these and talk about what's top of mind, 30 minutes. And if there's more conversation, we can do more of these or we can break it off. I think that's a good start. Get that started.
So on D, we've probably all seen the t-shirt, or probably now also a meme of, be careful or I will replace you with a very small shell script. You white lettering on a black t-shirt. Reminds me of this. I'm thinking about trying this private GPT thing where you basically, it's an open source project. You run a private GPT on your own computer, trained on what you give it. And I don't know, if I train on all my emails, all my Slack messages, all my GitLab issues and MRs I work on, and Google Docs, can it replace me? Like, if I get the time to do this, which I probably won't, I'm going to train on all this stuff. Again, it's all private. It doesn't send the data elsewhere. And then I'm going to say, I don't know, make something. Jay said X. What would Wayne say? Like, I will take a Slack message from Jay. I'm just making up a name and say, like, I wonder what if it's going to figure out what I would say. And you may actually get a response that I've copied and pasted out of this thing. I mean, it's not very good. It's very slow. Like, it takes 45 seconds on a normal computer to do one response, and it takes hours and hours and hours to train. But we'll see. Or perhaps you all will assume that I already have been replaced when you get a future message. We'll see. I have not loaded this yet. I'm going to think about it though, if I get some time. So, cool. All right. We had a couple read-only items. Unless anybody wants to read them, I think we're done.